Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please rise to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Morning, everybody. Do make sure you got your phones on silent. As Commissioner Culberson likes to say, you don't want to be that guy. Going off.
One job.
Roll call. We're starting with. I'm sorry. I want to get a moment of silent prayer first, please.
Yeah, we need it.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. We'll go to roll call. Today I'm going to start with Commissioner Dove.
Here.
Mr. Reed.
Here.
Mr. Culberson.
Here.
Commissioner Stephen.
Here.
And Commissioner Smith, I am here. Everybody's present. Public comment, we have two signed up. I have a David Clifton. David, if you want to come on up and speak, got 5 minutes. You give us your name and address, sir. I appreciate it. Good morning.
Morning. I'm surprising Mike. He didn't know I was coming this morning. So,
classmates in elementary school.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, we went to elementary and middle school together, actually. So,
I want to hear some stories later. Okay.
Yeah. Well, we can tell the one about his mom's car door falling off in the middle of everybody's at middle school. So
that's a good one.
That's pretty good. So.
Did you guys call him Hollywood back then?
We did not. So.
He's earned it. Go right ahead, sir.
Thank you for taking the time this morning. I know I'm here to speak on the potential closing of Leavenworth County Animal Humane Society and some of the difficulties that they're facing right now. I know I've been a resident of Leavenworth County for a little over 25 years now, and so I am a constituent. I don't live within any city limit of Leavenworth County. I live actually out in the county. So county resources and funding become very important to me at times because I'm not depending on city services for anything, really. Some of you know there may be a funding dispute that's kind of going on between Sheriff's Department, which, of course, you guys provide the funding or the money for, right, and how that gets distributed or how that's allocated by the sheriff for animal control within the county. As far as I know, the Humane Society is one of very few no-kill shelters within Leavenworth County, and so I don't think anybody here is for killing animals that are found as stray or dumped in the county. So that becomes very important to find shelters that will support that kind of no-kill option. So past few weeks I spoke to Commissioner Stephen and Commissioner Dove both on the phone about the problem. I understand the sheriff may have found a partial solution, but I don't think it's my opinion, I don't think they can house the number of animals that are dumped in the county, and I'll let the executive director of the Humane Society speak to that a little bit more. But, as I had talked to Commissioner Dove about, it doesn't matter if I'm the lowest bidder if I can never do the job. So I can give you a bid that's low. But if I can never facilitate the work or do the job, it doesn't matter what the bid was, if that makes sense. So I live out in an area of Leavenworth County, which is about 190th and Evans, that is a prime dumping ground for animals in Leavenworth County. So this issue really affects me and my neighbors more than maybe some areas within Leavenworth County in general, because Stranger Creek, which crosses Evans right there, seems to be a really good place to stop. People dump animals out and don't take care of them. As far as, the reason it becomes a problem, these animals, while most of us think, oh, well, it's a stray puppy, we'll help it, whatever, there's issues of disease, danger to livestock, danger to traffic, all of these things. And for some reason, I think the sheriff doesn't seem to think that it's their responsibility to come pick up these animals or do something with them at this point. Unless, I've been told that unless there's a criminal case number attached to it, the attitude has just kind of been, It's not our responsibility. Which I actually have the state statute. If any, I made copies for all of you, clearly pointing out that it is their responsibility. And I've talked to Representative Johnson from the Kansas State House, who's my representative, and he's pretty clear as a former law enforcement officer himself that it is the statute that clearly says the county sheriff has the responsibility as the chief animal control officer to do those duties. So, other than that, I really believe that each county does need, some sort of humane society to operate, to function in a humane society. If we can't take care of our animals and our people within the county, what are we really doing as a government? What are my tax dollars really going for at this point? I know from a personal standpoint, and I think Crystal can verify, I'm a pretty decent donor to the Leavenworth County Humane Society right now. My wife and I donate very regularly in fairly decent sized chunks of money. So it's not anything that I'm asking you to do that I don't already do myself. Okay? So other than that, if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer on just how many pets I end up seeing in my area.
No, I don't think we do.
And if you want the statute, I'd be more than happy to give you guys copies of it.
Vanessa?
So.
Have you been told yourself by the sheriff's department that they won't come out when you have a stray?
No, that's secondhand, but I know that, if I really, depending on how you guys would like to address that, I'm more than happy. It's a conversation Representative Johnson and I just had, because there is, when it comes to livestock, Kansas statutes actually clearly define that the sheriff is the chief animal control officer for livestock, and it says all strays can be taken to the county sheriff's office. I'm thinking, who's taking a stray calf up to the sheriff's office front door and saying, hey, by the way, I found this calf. There you go. It's your responsibility according to statute. It specifically exempts cats and dogs in that statute there. But this statute really points to who has the local animal control authority. And like I said, I'll let Crystal address kind of the difficulties that she's had in getting the sheriff to understand, that it's their responsibility to come pick them up. Right now, there's a lot of volunteers in the county that come pick them up. Sierra Jost, if you ever look on Facebook for Leavenworth County Lost Pets, you'll see her everywhere. I tried to get her to come this morning. She had another appointment, but I'd probably say she's responsible for bringing maybe 50 to 100 at least a year in herself. So that ought to tell you that, okay, why is she having to go out and do it? Well, there's a reason, and it's does the county actually have an animal control officer right now in the sheriff's department? So, it's been difficult at this point, but if we've got local volunteers that are having to go get them, my guess is it's because they can't get the county to get them, or it's been difficult too.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Thank you.
So have you addressed this with the sheriff?
I have not yet.
Okay.
I felt like I needed to come and see if there was a funding issue first through the county, or if it was truly a disagreement on what the sheriff's responsibilities are. This is an initial meeting for me to figure out what is really going on. Like I said, I'm involved with the Humane Society as far as being a donor, and I know that there's a problem within the county because I see it. This is only the second time I've ever been at a commission meeting in 25 years.
Welcome.
Yeah, well, so that tells you I'm pretty happy with everything that goes on in the county in general. But, to get me here twice in 25 years, you have to know that those two times become very important to me.
Absolutely.
So,
Appreciate
thank you very
coming
much.
in. Thank you.
So I sent out a newsletter to my constituents, and I'll just read what the animal control part that this is from the sheriff, is that the sheriff has notified the county commissioners that he has a contract with Deb's Riverview Kennels and Rescue for sheltering of dogs and cats caught within the county. The contract is through May of 2026, with the terms of the costs remaining the same as the original contract made previously with Leavenworth County Humane Society.
So, and that's what I was referencing earlier. If they don't have, I don't know what their capacity is, but I know it probably is not the same size as the
Okay, okay.
So
Crystal, your turn. Good morning, Crystal.
Come on down.
Morning. I did not prepare a script, which is very unusual for me. I'm mainly here to answer questions. My name is Crystal Blackdeer, and I'm here representing Leavenworth County Humane Society at 100 West Gilman Road in Lansing. And I wanted to come here today to answer any questions you might have about what Mr. Clifton brought up. But it also, as I was looking through some past references, some past attempts that we've made to resolve this issue, I came across a script that I came and presented to the County Commission on February 22nd of 2010. None of you were here then, but for 15 years, I've been approaching the issue of stray and abandoned pets in Leavenworth County. And this is a solvable issue. The solutions exist. Cooperation will get this done. And I really would like to make that happen. Our main problem with the sheriff's office is not that they're mean or uncompassionate or evil. The main disconnect is a difference of understanding of what animal control authority means. The statute doesn't spell out what responsibilities that incurs. But if you look up animal control, it includes the management of stray and abandoned pets. And that is what's not being addressed by the Animal Control Authority in Leavenworth County. The case numbers that are attached to animals are normally from instances where there's a cruelty or neglect allegation and the pets are taken because of that. The ones that we've gotten with case numbers included a severely injured pet that was on the highway that a county mowing crew came across, and the sheriff brought that one to us. And let's see, there was another one where a guy got locked up. He was put in jail, and he had 13 dogs on his property. So we got 11 of them. Animal Control got the other 2 because they were big and we had nowhere to put them. So those are the kinds of cases that the sheriff's office really does get involved with, and that's what their animal control officer focuses on. Interestingly, as I was doing research, I came across a job description for a sheriff's deputy that has a line in it that says, may act as an animal control officer. So there's some recognition that the deputies may need to act as an animal control officer, but the sheriff has publicly stated that he doesn't allow deputies to transport animals in their cars. And that's where the public comes in. Not necessarily just Sierra, and she doesn't go out looking for animals. She's called by people that see these animals, that know they need help, and Sierra has a scanner. She has some flexibility in her job schedule, so she can go out and help coordinate transport to the shelter, whether it's by herself or whether it's by the person that found the animal. So that's how Sierra gets involved. She knows everybody. And she came from Tonganoxie. She knows people down there. She's all over the county. So I'm kind of bouncing all over the place, but I wanted to make sure that I talked about 2010. We love the sheriff's office. I absolutely adore the people, and I understand that they need to focus on a law enforcement mission. We're not asking them to go pick up all the stray and abandoned pets in the county. That they have 3 guys on a shift on patrol most of the time. If they get tied up picking up a stray dog, that means they're not doing something else they need to be doing. That's not the issue. We would just like to have some funding to take care of those stray and abandoned animals that citizens bring to us.
Crystal, let me ask you a question
Yes, sir.
real quick if I could. And I should know this. I think I did, but I'm getting old. What was the funding what was the funding Leavenworth County was giving you until the contract expired?
We started at $1,250 a month. It was for the calendar year, and that was no matter how many animals they brought us. Then there was a 5% increase each year. We got up to the 5th year, so it was $1,474.03 a month until the contract was terminated.
Okay, and what were you asking for?
But the request that we put in was for $8,333 a month, for a grand total of about $106,000 for a year, which is a tremendous increase. However, 50 to 60% of the animals that come to us are from areas where the sheriff is the animal control authority. So based on percentages of intakes, we broke it out to Basser, Lansing, and the county, because that's who we accept animals from.
Oh, I remember when we were working trying to find you a place as a city administrator, finally you came up with that location on the street, which is perfect timing for y'all. I don't know if I'm just speaking out loud. I know we usually don't go in discussion on public comment, but this has been coming up so much, I felt I just need to say something. We get, and Mark, you can chime in anytime. We have the budgets come through. We do them here in a couple months, and that's where the money gets set aside and asked for. Once that money's to the sheriff, he does what he wants. We have no authority.
No, I understand. I read Nylander.
Okay, because he's an elected official.
Yep.
So even at the earliest, I think, because we got a roof that's falling, at the earliest, I think we'd have to be able to look at it is when the sheriff's department comes back to us in a couple of months. I don't know if there's anything that can be done before then. I'm just talking out loud. I'd like to find a solution for you. I really do. You know, it's in Lansing. I live in Lansing. I turn that corner every day. I see the walkers every day out there doing what they're doing. I have 2 of the walkers live 2 doors down from me. So I'm very happy with what y'all are doing. We just got to find something that works for everybody.
Absolutely. I agree. And I just want to get it in everybody's mind.
It's there.
I want to get it in everybody's mind. So out of 150, some people think that we go out and look for dogs just to bring them in, pull them out of somebody's driveway or off their porch. We don't do that.
Yeah.
That is not what we do. It's not what the citizens do. What happens is they see an animal that is endangering the traffic, that's barking at kids at school, that's bothering their livestock, and they bring it to us. Out of 152 dogs last year from the county, how many owners do you think claimed their dogs? 18 out of 152.
Okay.
That means that we hold them for the stray hold period.
You have to do
We
all the
get 'em
medical,
vetted,
yeah.
We get them adopted. We get them transferred.
Who do you have a contract with right now? Don't you have a contract with a few of the cities?
Basser and Lansing.
That's the only 2?
That's it. Yeah, Tonganoxie contracts with Leavenworth. And Leavenworth has their own big operation.
Yeah, I know.
It's bigger than ours.
Okay, well, I think you brought a lot of information here, and I think the more you do, the more questions we need to look into before we can go any further. So I know I can't speak for the other county commissioners, but I know it's not leaving my thought process, especially when I have to drive by it every day. So,
Well, you're all welcome. Come visit.
Well, I've been there when you had the ribbon
Yep.
cutting. I'm, a donor, but I think this is about as far as we can do, except you planted the seeds for us to think about this, and we'll continue going down that road.
Super.
Okay.
I did want to answer your question, Commissioner Reed, about the sheriff stating publicly. He has stated publicly that they will not pick up stray animals most of the time. Most of the deputies aren't allowed to transport. Only the animal control officers are allowed to transport in their vehicle.
Was that in the paper or what? How did
Yes, yeah. And I've heard him say it in meetings, too. He said it to me face to face. They may send Glenn out. If somebody complains about a stray animal, they may send Glenn out to investigate it. They may send another deputy out to talk to the resident. But most of the time, they will not pick up the animal and bring it anywhere.
Which my concern is that I always think we should call someone that's used to dealing with animals and has the proper equipment, because you never know
Right.
what you're bringing into your vehicle either.
Yeah.
So that part just concerns me.
Sure.
So.
Well, there's some concern about residents bringing us animals they don't know, too.
Right.
They take on a responsibility and some bit of risk.
Right. That's what I mean. Yeah. I would rather, we have proper structure for that. So.
And I've looked at Johnson County, but we don't want to be like Johnson County. So I also looked at Wyandotte County, and I'm working with Douglas County, and I'm a friend of the director of Prairie Paws, and she has a contract with Pottawatomie County. And so I'm looking at their contracts and their resolutions and how they do things, and I'm sure there's a solution. I'm sure.
I am too.
A couple questions.
Is that all you have?
Thank you.
Okay, Mike.
This contract with Deb's Riverside Kennels, you're saying that's inadequate?
I don't know.
Ho. Let's not.
I mean,
No,
let's not
Deb's.
go.
I will tell you this about Deb's. They're dual licensed as a rescue and a kennel. So they get inspected under two different sets of standards by the State Department of Agriculture. So that gives me a great degree of confidence that they're doing things to a standard.
I'm not talking about whether they're up to standard. I'm talking about sufficient for number of animals.
I think they're absolutely sufficient for the number of animals that come in with a case number. Because for us last year, that was, I think, 14 animals came in with a case number last year from the sheriff's office.
Okay, so my daughter works for Dr. Simons in
Yep.
Tonganoxie.
Yep.
And what typically happens when a veterinary clinic gets a stray animal? Or what's supposed to happen?
The first thing they normally do is try to figure out if the owner is close by. Because it's always better to find the owner and get them home before they ever go to a shelter. So they will try to find the owner, scan it for a microchip, check their record, see if they have the dog, if it's a dog that they know. They'll put up something on social media, and if they can't locate the owner, then they'll contact the shelter and see if we can take it. So, residents do that too. People make every effort to find out where that animal belongs before they bring it to us.
And last question is...
And then we try to find out who the owner is. I'm sorry.
Last question, is your organization going to be continuing? Are you going to... it's been in the paper that you're not going to be continuing, but obviously if we're going to, when we get into budget cycle, if we're going to be working with it, we're going to have
some sort of
Right.
reasonable assurance that we're going to operate. Here's what we did. The board had an executive meeting, and we said we got to put a mark on the wall. If things don't get better by the 31st of March, we're going to have to close. What we're looking at now, and we were going to have a board meeting tonight, but it's postponed a week because of the cold weather and the ice and the dark. Nobody wants to be out at night in this. So we're going to look at, can we do just Baser and Lansing for the time being until we get a new contract for the county? And what else can we do to bring money in? We've had an outpouring of support since we announced we might have to close. So March 31st was our mark on the wall. If things don't get better by then, we'll have to close. Things are better. Things are better. They're not better enough to carry us through the whole year, but they're better enough to carry us through to the end of March. So we're looking at our board meeting, we're going to look and say, let's put another mark on the wall and see how things are going maybe at the end of June. So we're going to do that until we can't do it anymore. Anyway, I don't go down without a fight. I'm a soldier. I'm here to see it through to success. I'm not here to close this down.
You think? Thank you, Crystal.
Thank you all very much.
Appreciate
and I do want the opportunity to come speak with you individually about this at some point in time. That's not a threat. It's a promise. I'll bring a donut.
Well, then you'll be okay.
We like barbecue also.
Yeah.
The barbecue at 8 o'clock in the morning?
Hey, it's
We
not
don't have
a
to meet
bad
at 8
time.
o'clock
It's
in
not
the
a bad time for barbecue. Let me tell you. Okay, those are
Thank you
the.
for your time.
Thank you both of you. No, we went a little further than we usually do on this, but let's move on. Mark, do you have anything? No. Mr. Dove, do you have anything?
No, Mr. Chairman.
3?
No.
Jeff? Mike?
I do have one thing. I
Surprise,
want to discuss the article in the newspaper about the LCDC and the issues we've had with the board. And I think it's incumbent upon them to I did speak to some of the folks from those organizations, and I think they didn't realize that we were routing our money. We route all of our money through the Port Authority that's designated for the LCDC. So last year we designated a total of $85,000. It may not be exactly that, but right about $85,000. went to the Port Authority. Then the Port Authority designated, Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, $139,000 to go to LCDC for their operation budget. Am I on track so far?
Commissioner, looking at the LCDC's budget, that is the number that they have in there from the Port Authority to. I'm not familiar 100% if the Port Authority approved that or not, because that would be their discretion to give them that money.
So as far as we can tell from publicly available information, that's the numbers. But that places us, if we're looking at those numbers correctly, as the number one funder of the LCDC as a county. So I just want to put this out there as a suggestion, and we did talk about this before, but I would suggest that we postpone additional funding until we have our work session with the LCDC and Port Authority, and that we also request, in order to receive additional future funding, that we have a member designated to be on the executive committee of the LCDC. Let's put that out there for discussion.
Yeah, this was all quite interesting to me. So I think that we need to be very strong in our development of Leavenworth County, and we need to be very intentional. And we need to make sure that the people that are leading those efforts and are receiving tax dollars are doing the right thing. And I think another thing that concerns me is personal interest. When we look at the people that make up the boards, I think that's something that we should also look at when we address this issue.
Yeah, I go with you. We've talked about this for a while. And, Baser even pulled out again in the second time. We brought it up to LCDC. Now, this is nothing to take away from the people that work for LCDC.
Right.
Lisa and Mary and
right.
I forgot the other young lady's name.
Fantastic. Diana Dodd.
Yeah, do a fantastic job. What we've asked for in the past is a better system to trace the funds and also to reimburse themselves so they don't have to always be asking the county for money. Mm-hmm. There's formulas we've given to them. I know Mark shipped them to them. I was going to bring this up to Port Authority meeting, but it's canceled from yesterday, so they're having it next Tuesday, so I'll definitely be looking for that discussion. I just hope this is a misunderstanding and we can get right back on the right track, because there are some concerns when I read something like that in the paper and hear about that. Other comments?
I agree with you, Commissioner Stephen, on a way forward, so we'll see.
Could we draft that into a policy and present it?
Well, listen, Mark, when are they due to be paid again?
Well, we just received their request for the 2025 funds last week. That hasn't been processed yet. Typically, budgeted funds like that would be processed within 2 to 3 weeks after we review to make sure they meet all of our other policies. So without action from the Board of County Commissioners, we will distribute that funds per our current policy.
And how much is it? Do they break it down in quarterlies, or they use one time?
They asked for the full amount, and so they would receive the $85,000 without further action.
And that'd be for this year?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Mark, you're saying that the $85,000 that they have that they're due would be coming out in a lump sum
Yes.
to them unless the Board of County Commissioners sees a different action.
Yes, because it was approved as part of the budget process, and we have received their request. Our policy allows for that to be distributed, so we would need the board to give direction if that was not your intention.
Excuse me, Chairman. Were there any contingencies that are written up that says that if they do not perform such actions, that in our contract with them?
The Port Authority is who the money goes to, not the LCDC. So I want to make sure that that's clear. The LCDC is the group that has removed our voting rights on their board, not the Port Authority.
Right.
Port Authority is a group made up of representatives, 2 from the county, 2 from the city of Leavenworth, 1 from Lansing, 1 from Tonganoxie, and 1 from Pacer. Once we pass the money on to them, that group decides how then they use that as far as economic development goes. It has to go towards the economic development purposes. But that board, the Port Authority board, is the ones who decide how to distribute it. They asked for money in the budget process, and it was amended as we went, because I think originally they asked for $400,000, and we settled on $85,000 by the time. I think in the budget we had $23,000, and then afterwards in August, I think late August, the board approved an additional $63,000 that was for economic development. We have a policy that outside agencies like the Port Authority and some of the other ones that receive funds from the county have to meet certain stipulations. They have to bank locally. They have to be a nonprofit. They have to provide us with their audit if they're required to get one. Not every organization is required to. And if we are more than a certain percentage of their total operating funds, that we have representation on their board of directors. So last year we brought this up with the LCDC about that policy, and that was when they took, I think, the stance, I think it was last year, may have been the year before, but they took the stance that we don't fund them directly, so therefore we don't have rights to a position on their board, and that was their executive board, I think, at that time. So this is the first time, obviously, this year is the first time that they've now taken the approach that we don't fund them at all, and therefore we don't have a voting right on their regular board either. But
Sounds like we're dealing with semantics here.
Exactly. It's the Port Authority is funded and has been funded for over 50 years, 100% by Leavenworth County. The money comes through us to them. So any money that comes out of the Port Authority is county. Those are county funds.
Yes.
I think I said that last week. So we may not be writing the check directly, but the check is definitely coming from taxpayer funds that the county provides.
Thank you.
I've got just a thought on this. The county can pay when they want and choose. That doesn't matter, because we're the one right. Would there be any interest? Because I think we need to get this. When is the work session scheduled for, Mark?
It has not scheduled yet. We put some dates out with availability with commissioners. It wouldn't be, the earliest would be the second week in March, I believe.
Why wouldn't we consider, just a thought process, they've already gone from January 1st through March, and pay them for that time, not the total amount, because they've already been, that was part of the agreement. But if they're not going to continue any further from March, then I say we hold that last, what would break down 50,000 or whatever it is, and stop that. Is that possible?
And I want to make sure, commissioners, I want to clarify again. It's the funding is going to the Port Authority, not the LCDC. Nothing has changed at the Port Authority. Nothing's changed there. So if they don't, they're not broke. They don't. The money. If you decide to delay the funds to the Port Authority, they still have over $700,000. I think the last financial statement I saw was $750,000 in their reserves, their bank. So I think if you decided to hold it, it's not going to impact their operations today or for the next several years. But those funds are funds going to the Port Authority, not the LCDC. So if you're going to hold the funding, that's fine. I just need direction that you would hold it.
Let me ask the commissioners then. Commissioners, do you want to hold it the entire until we meet with them? Because I see this is Port Authority has to get on board on what they're going to do with the LCDC too. Mm-hmm. It's not just commissioners. If they don't want to fund them because we're not sending them funds, that's up to them. But my only thought was giving them 3 months or whatever commissioners want to do is we are through those 3 months. And I would suggest we hold the rest of it. But if it's the wishes of the board to hold it until they come in and talk to them, I definitely understand the concerns there too.
I have a question. You said and I do remember it. there's so many things that come through here that the memory gets foggy. But the current policy was that they were to have a member on the executive board. Was that the current policy?
Yes, for any organization that we exceed a certain percentage of their funding.
So they rejected that policy.
Yes, basically, yeah, they did.
Yeah, so that's our policy. If we're going to live up to our policy, I think we should
Good point.
hold the funding, living up to our policy until we have the work session.
Is that your motion?
Second.
Motion second. Any more discussion? Mr. Dove?
Aye.
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 Aye. There's the direction we will go. Hopefully we can get this resolved with everybody. Okay. Mike, you didn't have anything else, did you?
I did not.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to consent agenda. Need a motion?
Chairman, make a motion that we
Go ahead,
accept the
Jeff.
consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion?
Discussion.
Okay. Commissioner Dove?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board recess.
No, not yet. We're on this one right here.
Where are we?
Or we're just voting on the consent agenda?
Right
Where
there.
you- Okay, thank you.
I'll get there.
All right.
I know it's the first time on that. I might have confused you. Okay, so we're just voting now.
That's easy.
Confuses people
That's
all the
easy.
time.
Got a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. I'm going to start in a roll call with you.
Aye.
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 Aye. Didn't mean to put you on the spot like that. It's probably my directions. Okay.
That's what it is. My understanding.
Move into former action, board action. Do we want to do the executive first, Mark, or do we want to do the working?
That's your decision. I think it's going to be a fairly lengthy executive session, so you might want to handle the work session.
Okay.
I know it's listed as a work session, which we usually do after the meeting, but it's a presentation.
That's fine. Okay, it's okay, Commissioners, we'll go ahead and do the work session, get out of the way, then we'll go to the executive. You're up, young folks.
If we happen to cough into the mic a couple of times, please excuse us.
Yeah, I've been there. And the reason we brought this up is because we're looking at,
We were looking at several requirements going through the SUP process, and with alcohol being served as part of an SUP application, we were asked to take a look at requirements potentially for certified, for lack of a better term, certified bartenders throughout the state. So had Amy and several of the staff look into this, both in Missouri and Kansas. And she'll go through each one of these elements with you. Currently, the state doesn't require a mandatory licensing of bartenders. It does recommend that bartenders are certified. These certifications are obtained through a number of third-party contractors. So essentially, it's like a food handler's license.
Right.
You can voluntarily get it, and once you get it, it will be recognized. State recommends that certified bartenders working and manager be present on site during serving hours, so you have some oversight of that certified bartender. Again, traditionally in a bar setting, a fixed location. Servers and bartenders are defined separately. Certifications appear only for bartenders themselves.
Just to be clear, bartenders are those that pour drinks, open bottles. Servers are individuals that just serve after that drink has been made to a client. So.
like they used to do in restaurants, you used to go, if you were 18, you could take the order, but 21 had to bring the drink out to the person.
Right.
Still
Okay.
correct, yeah.
Yeah. So the action of actually serving the drink
Right.
itself is
Gotcha.
completely
Okay, thank
different than that.
What are the organizations that do this certification?
There are too many to list here today. There are a number of third parties. I would say there's at least 20, 30,
That's what I found, yeah.
20 to 30 different third parties that can supply this particular certified designation that the state will recognize.
Does that affect liability? Why do people seek these certifications?
I think it's a voluntary element, and yes, there probably, if litigation were to happen, it may have some impact on
Well,
that.
one thing too, before you do this, usually you want to carry insurance. And to get insurance, you have to be, most of the time, that company that's carrying it wants to be a certified person do that, so you got.
Well, it could be that that's a stipulation of the rider. That's entirely possible, and it really depends on the event.
Right.
Yeah, so certifications, obviously, as mentioned, are from third parties. The state of Kansas currently doesn't offer a certification course for bartenders, so you're relying on third-party educational providers to provide that certification. In my research, it seems like most certification classes take a couple of hours to complete. A lot of them are online. Topics vary depending on who's providing that. A lot of times they're packaged with other types of certifications that you will find in the food industry, like food handler certifications and the like. But it seems like the bartender certifications, they focus on, obviously, the laws surrounding serving and consuming alcohol, overconsumption, and then the responsibility of a bartender who overpours or provides overconsumption. Certifications are valid for approximately 30 years, but of course that differs from the entity that provides that certification.
3 years.
I'm sorry.
That'd be a long time.
But 3 years, sorry. But yeah, so that's what I could find on certifications for
Does
bartenders.
Kansas have a dram shop law where a certified bartender is, or a bartender in general, is just you're not to overserve to bring to drunkenness?
I'm gonna, not that I'm aware of, but I would defer to legal on that.
I'll have to look into that. I don't know
Okay.
off the top of my head.
Okay.
Good question. So whose responsibility is it for overdrinker? Is it the server or the bartender?
Again, that's a legal opinion that we'll defer to the attorney for, and she'll follow up with
We're
that.
just piling on, Misty.
I'm going to give you a lawyer answer and say it depends on the circumstances.
Thank you, Mr.
I could have read that answer for you. And we go ahead before they get sideways again.
All right. We did reach out to a few other counties, neighboring counties, to see what they require. So Johnson, Douglas, and Miami, I was able to get somebody on the phone yesterday. None of them directly require certification of bartenders for SUPs or TSUPs. All of them just adhere to the state licensing. So as long as the vendor has a state licensing, whether it be a temporary CMB, a caterer's license, or something of the like, that was enough for them. So I could not find anybody that requires certified bartenders on the Kansas side.
So again, from a staff perspective, while it's not required by the state, you could, if that was your intention, require it on SUPs that served alcohol. There's nothing that precludes you from doing that.
So if you have, let's just put an example out, an SUP and they desire to provide alcohol, maybe not charge for alcohol, but they're going to provide alcohol, and they're just going to have a open, coolers full of alcohol that they're just going to provide. If we had a certified person overseeing that, part of that certification is to know what the age requirements are for distribution of alcohol.
Again, all of the alcohol elements that are relative to the SUP are predicated on the sale of alcohol. Selling the alcohol to, I assume, a minor in your particular scenario. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the reason to have the certified bartender. But to simply pass out alcohol, that regulation wouldn't be something I would be comfortable putting stipulation on.
So that's kind of what we're talking about.
So I think this is a good slide because it talks about licensed versus certified. So the difference here is that they're requiring licensed vendors, and those vendors then have to be aware of the state law and make sure their employees are then aware of the state law, or they risk their license.
For the sale of alcohol, yes.
Yeah, so for like catering and stuff. So if you wanted to regulate it, you could say that no, potentially, and that this is something we'd have to review to make sure we could do that as a restriction, that no alcohol is allowed on site unless distributed by a licensed vendor. Accomplishes the same thing as requiring certified bartenders.
I think I've seen a lot of them. Isn't that what we did in Lansing? when the Lansing days, when the people would come in, John, or how did they work?
We did, but that was all predicated on the sale of alcohol, not the distribution of alcohol.
Yeah.
So everything in those particular events was relative to the sale of alcohol, temporary CMBs, all of those elements that we talked about.
So if what you're saying, and we'd have to check the legality of this, but you prohibit the no alcohol on the premises unless it is provided by a licensed vendor or certified.
Unless it's distributed by a licensed vendor. I think
Whether and distributed would include
served.
either, sales or distribution of any kind.
So I'm clear, a central distribution area, like a paid-for bar, you walk up, you get a drink, you're not paying for that drink, you're simply being served by a bartender, not someone who has a cooler that anybody walks up
Right.
and grabs a beer out
Just
of.
trying to find a way to make sure that folks that are underage are not.
No, I understand. I understand. And I think, there's a number of ways to accomplish that. Clearly, you could certainly do it this way. There's another item that Mike brought up last time, and that's licensed law enforcement officers
Being present.
being present during certain TSUPs and
That's what we
SUPs
did.
that have some element of their narrative that requires enforcement, specifically something like this.
And if an SUP stated that they were not going to have
Then-
alcohol on site, and then we have a deputy there, and we see that it's on site, they're clearly in violation of it.
There are a number of ways to accomplish that, yes, and we can also send planning and zoning staff out at a predetermined time from us. We wouldn't let them know when we're coming out to make sure that those items are enforced as well. So, yeah, there's a number of ways to accomplish that.
I'm all for having a person be responsible, but you got to remember, this is just not for the one that we've been dealing with recently. This is for the event centers. So we got to make sure that when we're talking about this, we're putting something in place that takes care of everything that comes before us on an SUP like that.
It's not uncommon to have that very thing.
I know.
Licensed law enforcement
I
officers.
just want, because I know where this came from, what we've been dealing with the rodeo, but I want to make sure everyone knows we get a lot of these things from event centers and stuff like that we have to make sure these rules are going to apply to everybody. And someone doesn't
Yes.
come up to us and say, wait a minute, you didn't do that. So I agree with it. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying you got to be careful.
So we could propose language when we go through our text amendments that may be key language that initiates whatever you guys decide to do, but specifically in this instance, initiates the need for a licensed officer to attend that specific
Certified.
TSUP or SUP. Yes.
If I may, Commissioners, I think some of the reason and reluctance you see in other jurisdictions to go too far afield when it comes to alcohol is the state alcohol statutes are complex, and I think a lot of jurisdictions like to just leave it at that because there are exceptions in there for different variety of things, and that's probably why you're seeing the reluctance to go beyond that. But I would concur with John that I have seen other jurisdictions state that if alcohol is going to be served, a law enforcement officer is present because it's already illegal to serve to minors in the situation that Commissioner Stephen was discussing. A cooler that's open where minors are being allowed to obtain alcohol, that's already a violation.
Yeah, it worked well. I can only relate to Lansing. It worked well in Lansing for the fair, the greeting we had, the thing we had all the time, whether it was the fireworks or the celebration of the city. We always had one or two certified officers at that booth. And I can assure you, I was walking by, I saw some people do a double take and they did about in face. So I know it works to a certain degree. We can't cover it all, but I think some of the things we're talking about here are something we really need to take a real hard look at.
So again, from a staff perspective, it seems to be an issue of enforcement, not necessarily condition. So if it's an enforcement issue, I think there are a number of ways to address that. And we'd be happy to present that to you. But we think one is certified law enforcement and P&Z staff. We think that's probably the best avenue.
I think certified is going to do a lot of things for the last issue we're talking about, that person on site, independent person observing themselves. It's not he said, she said, things like that. Commissioners, what do y'all think?
What's the availability of that officer for?
Well, it may not be a Leavenworth County Sheriff's officer. It may be an officer from another jurisdiction. So until we put that pool together or ask the local chiefs to put that pool together, we can't tell you that. But they do this for other areas.
Sandstone.
Yeah, Sandstone and number.
Work there.
So those pools exist today. I can't tell you the exact number of officers that exist in the
I just
pool,
know
but
sometimes
know
I hear there's a shortage,
Oh,
and so I want to make sure
sure.
that we're not.
But again, so I'm clear, it wouldn't just be Leavenworth County Sheriff's officers. It would be from a larger pool.
And a lot of times they get paid overtime for it, or time and a half or 2 times, depending what the person, that tends to interest them.
But that pool will go up and down with people that will participate in it. But it wouldn't be the intention that every single SUP would have law enforcement in it. So, or need at this particular time. It would be a few key elements in certain SUPs that would require that enforcement component.
So can we just have these folks work on a draft policy and bring it back to us?
Just looking for some, I don't know if you got enough direction. Do you get enough direction from us, Mark? What are you thinking?
Well, it sounds like you want to do, if they're going to have allow alcohol on the premise at an event, a commercial event that's like would be an SUP license, that they also then be required to have a licensed officer there.
Certified officer. I don't see that. To me, I don't see no reason why not.
And when we do our annual text amendment review, we can certainly present that as part of the SUP component. When we do all our text amendments, if that is the will of the board.
I think you could do it before then if that was the desire of the board.
We can do it now, whatever you like.
Well, I'd just like to see it get a policy in place so when we face these situations going forward, that everybody's treated the same and we implement them equally.
Okay, we'll get it turned around.
Any commissioners have any more on that?
No, I agree with Commissioner Stevens on that. We should
Jeff?
go ahead and do something now about it.
Anything else? Okay. Thank you.
Short and sweet.
Clear as mud. Have at it. Okay. Now we're ready for the executive session.
Now go, Willie.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I move that the board recess for closing executive meeting for discussions on subjects involving legal interests of the county of certain confidential matters related to potential claims, litigations, and justified by KSA 75-4319B. 2, for consultation with legal counsel, which would be deemed privileged in attorney-client relationship, and that board resume opening a meeting at 10:50 a.m. in the meeting board in the room of the board. Present in the executive session will be Commissioners Mike Smith, Jeff Culberson, Vanessa Reed, Willie Dove, Mike Stevens, and County Counselor Misty Brown, Deputy County Counselor John Coolio, and County Administrator Mark Lowry.
Second.
Motion and second. Call start calling the roll. Commissioner Dove?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All righty. We're in executive.
The board has returned to regular session at 10:51.
10:50. Clock's wrong. 10:50.
Stop. Go ahead.
No action was taken and no decisions were made. The subject was limited to legal interests of the county. And, Mr. Chairman, we're asking for another 15 minutes to continue our session.
We need to read that. We need to go into that again.
Read the whole thing all over again?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I move that the board recess for closed executive session for discussions of subjects involving the legal interests of county and confidential matters related to potential claims and litigations as justified by KSA 75-4319B. 2, for consultation with legal counsel, which would be deemed privileged in attorney-client relationship. And that board resume opening that meeting at 10:55. I'm sorry, 10, and in the meeting with the board present in the executive meeting will be Commissioners Mike Smith, Jeff Culberson, Vanessa Reed, Willie Dove, Mike Stevens, County Commissioner Misty Brown, Deputy Commissioner Counselor John Kileo, and County Administrator Mark Lowry.
Second.
That's how you do it.
Motion and a second. Start with the roll call.
Aye.
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 Aye. See, you fall. Okay, let's get going.
Mr. Chairman, the board has returned to regular session at 11:11 a.m. No action was taken and no decisions were made. The subject was limited to and legal interest of the county.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Okay, next item is we need to do presentations, and we'll start with Mr. Dove. Do you have anything for the group?
No, I do not, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Reed?
No.
I think we've talked a lot, haven't we? Mr. Culberson?
I don't have anything this week.
Well, Commissioner Dove does have something because we went to Topeka and testified on the property tax
Yeah.
issue.
I stand corrected. Yes, we did.
And it was we're pushing the cap, but they have an alternative bill, but I don't know what's going to happen, so we'll see.
I'm glad you guys did that, though. That's great. Okay, I've only got I was supposed to attend the Port Authority yesterday, but they moved it to next Tuesday, so I'll be there with some of the concerns we've had. And Thursday, I have my first juvenile advisory board meeting. And that's all I have. With that being said, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Aye. Go. Jesse.
Commissioner Dove.
So move.
Is that an aye?
Aye, yes.
All right.
Aye.
Sorry.
I thought I heard three of them.
I thought you voted 3 times.